Standing by the mic, I don't mean to be that formal. My name's Carrie Sandy, and to make things even more confusing, I brought Carrie Thomas with to help with the presentation. So I'm the manager of crisis stabilization and residential services at Resurrection Behavioral Health in Melrose Park. Carrie Thomas is a triage worker. If you call the crisis line, you probably talk to Carrie Thomas.
Now you have a face to a voice if you call.
If you call. So we're going to do a presentation today on workplace violence.
So, let's see. So this is kind of a rundown of what we're going to learn today as a group. So we have identify and define workplace violence as it relates to a hospital setting, and recognizing when a patient is escalating or becoming violent. Work through verbal and non-verbal de-escalation skills, little activity, and tools to develop a plan for prevention. So the definition of workplace violence. This is from OSHA, and workplace violence is violence or the threat of violence against workers. It can occur outside the workplace or can range from threats and verbal abuse, and it can also be physical violence, including homicide.
So here's some statistics from the National Crime Victimization Survey. I had a hard time finding some good, specific statistics for healthcare, especially considering that you guys are all LTAC here. So this is based on anybody who's in the working population, so 16 and older, anybody who's working full-time, part-time, registry, as long as they're employed, they were included in this survey. So according to their survey, broken down for medical staff, 6.5 out of every 1,000 medical staff are victims of workplace violence between the years of 2005 and 2009. So the percentages are based out of everybody who's working. So out of everybody who's in the working population in the U.S., that is 10.1% of the working population are victims within healthcare of workplace violence. And then they break it down a little bit more for physicians, nurses, technicians, and then other/medical occupations. I'm guessing that includes pharmacists, anybody working registration desk, anything like that. So for physicians, it was 10.1 or 1.1% of the working population. Nurses, 8.1 out of every 1,000 or 3.9%. Technicians is a little higher at 11.1 and then 2.3% of the population, which probably just shows, those three numbers show the differential between how many physicians we have out of everybody in the working population, and same thing with nurses and techs. And then 3.7 or 2.9% for other/medical occupations. That probably also includes you guys in the back for security. So then types of workplace violence. I know this is probably pretty remedial, but it's just a nice reminder to have an idea of what we're talking about with workplace violence. So it can be verbal assaults, it can be anything from name calling. I don't think I need to give explanations of what that is, but any of the lovely bad words that we sometimes get called on a unit. Threats of violence, if somebody's saying, I'm going to come back and beat you up, or I'm going to throw this tray at you, something like that, along with disruptive behaviors. You might have a client or patient that throws a chair, knocks a table over, things like that. And then your basic physical assaults, which would include physical aggression, somebody making a gesture. You see that a lot, or we see it a lot, I guess, with our psych patients. Somebody that's balling up their fists, that's enough to be a physical assault and gesture. And then the use of weapons. We automatically think of a knife, a gun as a weapon, but chemicals can be weapons as well.
So we have a little quiz. Who do we think is at risk for violence in a hospital setting?
The most?
Just in general.
Nurses.
Nurses? Okay. Who else? Anybody else got an idea?
Social workers.
Social workers, yes. So the simple answer is actually everyone. So we have the patients are at risk, staff members, medical staff, administrative staff, social workers, we have security guards are at risk, maintenance workers, I mean anybody really, other patients are at risk of becoming victims of violence here in the hospital setting.
That those long-term care practitioners are just as likely to experience violence in the workplace as police officers. This just doesn't fit with what most of us think about healthcare workers. And sadly, it's true.
The biggest change in aggression in healthcare occurred during the 1990s. Now, 95% of the people who are in long-term care are in what's called integrated care 2 or 3, and most of them suffer from very severe dementia. That presents challenges in terms of behavior, both for them and for the staff.
Hospital emergency rooms are another healthcare setting where anxiety, fear, and frustration often escalate to violence and aggression.
When you get into the hospital, you typically got people who know each other very well, interacting with a structure that they may not know very well, but they're under stress, bad things are happening, and some of these people are quite unable to do anything other than point a finger and blame.
Okay, I'm leaving. We have to contact you about your medication, Mr. Hawk. People are living longer and they're staying in their homes longer. They're depending on the system, and the system has changed in the last few years.
Part of the solution is how do people recognize their own anger? And when it comes to healthcare, something we all value, we collectively have to recognize that those kinds of attitudes are diminishing the kinds of service and the value of the service that the people we have before us are entrusted with.
We can all contribute to a safe and violent-free healthcare system. First, by being aware of our own levels of frustration and aggression, and second, by deciding not to take out our anger on the very people who are there to help us. Remember, by keeping healthcare workers safe, we're ensuring the healthcare system will remain strong and responsive when we need it. For WorkSafe BC, I'm Maria Rose.
So that's a video obviously out of Canada and British Columbia, but I kind of just gave a nice overview of some of the things that everybody interacts with within healthcare, especially when it relates to violence. So these are just two scenarios that I came up with. They may or may not be very good ones relating to the hospital. But just to give you an idea of what we're talking about with workplace violence, the first one is a patient that's upset they've been put on a cardiac diet. We'll say they've been eating everything in sight, everything that they shouldn't be eating. So they're obviously very upset that now they have to eat a little bit healthier. They're being forced to do it. It's under control at a hospital. And they get upset. They start swearing at the nurse or the tech who brings them the tray and threatens to punch the doctor who did this to them. That's obviously violent. They're making a threat. They may have a gesture. The other one is actually between two workers, and a maintenance guy hears it. So a maintenance worker is changing the light bulb in a hallway and sees two employees walking and arguing. One employee tells the other to watch their back as they go into the parking lot tonight. So just two different ideas of what we could be talking about. Of course, security may get called for everything in relation to that. And then these are reasons why people may act out violently. One is that they're medically ill. You guys all know when people come in, they're very sick, they're not feeling well, they may not be thinking things through very well, and they're upset. They may make threats based on that. They may act out aggressively because of that. The other is because they're mentally ill. Now, if they're medically complicated and mentally ill, that's just going to complicate things even more. You may have somebody who becomes symptomatic because they can't take their medication, their psychiatric medication, because of whatever medically is bringing them into the hospital. That may increase their symptoms. They may be hallucinating a little bit more. They may have an increase in depression. They have an increase in mania and acting very wildly. Cognitive problems, anybody who's coming in with traumatic brain injury, some of our car accidents, things like that, are going to increase somebody's agitation. Just not feeling that they're being understood. You know, if they're trying to tell you, I don't know, for example, the guy with the cardiac diet, that he really needs to eat a hot dog. And he's not feeling that he's being understood. He may act out. And then the power and control issues. People are coming into the hospital that have had all these different socioeconomic issues and other issues with family members. They don't have any control now that they're sitting in a hospital room. The medical staff are the ones that are in control, and then sometimes that just increases somebody's agitation. And then just their general inability to cope with whatever medically is going on with them. Whether they got a bad diagnosis or outlook doesn't look good, something's going on at home, but again, they can't address. So, signs of escalation. Somebody who's escalated could have a very raised voice, rapid speech, motor agitation, somebody who's clenching their fists, moving their arms a lot, pacing back and forth. Carrie and I might look a little agitated right now with some of our movements. The ball of fists, that's one I keep going back to. It's one that I've seen so many times with patients that have gotten agitated. And then aggressive postures. Somebody who's, again, pacing, maybe they're standing too close to the door, they're trying to elope, maybe going too close to a table, picking a table up, moving a chair, things like that. Excessive sweating and change in voice pitch. Sometimes you'll have somebody who may speak a little bit lower, but as they get agitated, their voice just gets higher and higher, just the pitch does. So, think of like Minnie Mouse a little bit. So I purposely picked this picture of this guy. I personally think he looks a little scary. So I just want you guys to take a really quick 30 seconds just to write down, just looking at him, how you would react if somebody showed up in your workplace setting. I know you guys all have different settings. So if he's showing up at your desk, if he's showing up in your unit, if security gets called to him, how do you guys, what do you feel internally as you're dealing with him? So just take a quick 30 seconds and jot it down.
Threatened. What's a physical change that you might have?
I would say it's going to vary. You either have that fight or flight syndrome, and me, I tend to fight. So that probably wouldn't be the best response. But I would stand up. I would position myself to defend myself physically.
And I think that's a normal response. Did anybody come up with anything else other than that? Panic. What happens when we panic? What happens to us?
I freeze. I get really red.
Yeah, those are all normal responses. So, the next slide goes over what some of our nonverbal responses are. Things to use, some things when you're dealing with somebody who looks like the last picture. It's really easy to say remain calm and not. But But I think if you think it through and if we practice, you're going to be a lot better at doing it. One thing is to limit eye contact. We're always taught to be respectful, to keep eye contact with people. You don't want to do that when somebody's really agitated, because they're going to think you're staring them down. That's going to increase their agitation, increase how fearful they are. You want to keep a neutral expression. I'm very expressive. I know that I have issues with that sometimes when I'm dealing with people. That, you know, I'll smile a lot, or I'll giggle, or I'll, you know, just have some sort of expression. They want you to have a really neutral expression when you're dealing with somebody who's really agitated. Relaxed, alert posture. So you don't want to be standing up there flailing your arms, pacing back and forth. That's going to really agitate somebody. So just a more neutral body posture. You guys are probably taught that too, right? And then slowed body movements. You know, if you're going into a hospital room, you don't want to start organizing the desk area or the tray that they're using, cleaning that up. That's going to be too quick of a body movement, might be too close to the patient, so you want to be careful with that. Work on the same level as the patient. It's a little bit harder when somebody's in a hospital bed. If they're sitting up though, and you can comfortably get a chair far enough away from the patient, I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting down so that you're at the same eye level. That's again less of a threat. It's not a threatening body posture. Something I wouldn't recommend for security again, but if you're a nurse, if you're a tech, if you're going into the room, there's nothing wrong with bringing yourself closer to their level. You know, if we're standing over a patient, that's going to increase agitation. Refrain from physical gestures. You don't want to physically touch the patient if you don't have to. And then remember your safety. My thing is you always want to be the first one that can get out of the door, if possible. So you want to remember that when you're going into a room. Hospital beds coming out from the wall, the door's here, you don't want to be here by the window. That puts you in a really bad position. And then our verbal responses. We have to go in remembering that we're trying to reduce the patient's stress. Communication should be solely around decreasing their agitation, decreasing their stress. Avoid talking about whatever escalated them. You know, my bad example with the person with the cardiac diet. Don't talk about the cardiac diet. Talk about, you know, we need you to calm down. I need you to take a deep breath. Things like that to take their mind off of whatever was agitating them. Maintain an even monotone voice tone. So you don't want to have a high pitch. This is part of the remaining calm. You know, you want to just watch the inflections in your voice. And then when agitation is decreased, then you can start talking about whatever the issue was that brought up the agitation. You know, start maybe talking about why the person's in the hospital. The example with the cardiac diet. You know, be honest. You're here because you have a heart issue. Something very simple to understand, not very complicated. And then start talking about why they were so upset about the cardiac diet. You know, is there a reason? Is there something that you really liked? Is there something you didn't like that was brought? Set limits, be respectful. If this person gets agitated again, go right back into using your de-escalation skills. Right back into remaining calm, right back into using a soothing voice tone. You know, stop talking about whatever the issue was. Have the person take a deep breath, things like that, just to keep them calm.
It's also important to know, I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, our own response to when somebody is escalating. You know, we might at first, the fight or flight idea that we already discussed, you know, am I going to freeze up and just stay here? Am I going to run out of the room? Am I going to try to talk to you? You know, in the moment you might feel scared, you feel threatened, you don't know what's going to happen. You can come out of nowhere, or maybe you know the patient, you know that typically they're an angry person and that they get violent very easily. So it's important to know your own response while this is happening. So like we've said, your heart's racing, your adrenaline's going, you're either going to stay there or you're going to leave. So that's the natural reaction of the fight or flight. Your voice could get louder. Your hands can start shaking, your voice can get shaky, you might start to stutter over your words. It's just the natural human response to a situation like that. You can start sweating, or there could be times after the incident is over. I don't know if this has happened to anyone. I know for myself, I'm in there and I'm like just zoned in on that patient. I'm trying to de-escalate them. After it's done and I'm talking to my coworkers, my hands are shaking. My heart is still racing. I have to leave my space and go get some fresh air. So that's just your response, your body's response that you might not even know is happening until after the fact. So it's important to be aware of your own body's response and know that it's okay and it is part of the process.
I like to put in self-preservation skills, just little things that that kind of help bring us back down to our sense of normalcy, get our heart rate back to normal, get our hands from not shaking. And I'm very similar to this theory that when I'm dealing with an agitated patient, my hands do shake. I do realize that. And I can feel my blood pressure go up. So I think it's just being very self-aware of what happens to you when you're in that situation. That's going to help you remain calm, help you think a little bit more clearly. I know it's really hard sometimes to get off the unit. I used to, when I worked at a inpatient psych facility, I would just use bathroom break. Nobody's going to question a bathroom break. Go in the bathroom, wash your hands in cold water. It's amazing how much that can help just kind of bring you back down. Put your wrists under water, you have a lot of pressure points there. That's going to bring you back down to reality. Gives you 30 seconds to a minute to yourself, helps you regulate your breath, all of that. If you haven't taken a break and you can get out to the cafeteria just to get a bottle of water, something like that. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to kind of impede your other coworkers, but it just gives you a break off the unit. Talking to your peers, processing is always a good thing. If you were in the room with somebody else, if you were in the room with security, talking to them. I'm not talking about being like super hearts and butterflies and having like a full conversation about our feelings, but just, that sucked. This was really hard for me. Did you feel your heart rate go up? Were you scared? Things like that. Something that's just very simple, just so you have that camaraderie with the person. Once you get home, once you get off the unit, this is more for a really violent act, something that's really stress-inducing. Sometimes going out for a simple walk, having some sort of exercise, does help us several days after. That's something if you've ever sat through debriefing with the crisis team, will tell you that. Go for a walk. It's a very simple act, 20-minute walk, really does help your recovery after a violent act. Listening to music is a simple one. I'm sure you guys all have different coping skills that you use. And if you're still at work and you can't get off the unit, completing a non-patient related thing, getting you away from patient care, filing, refilling a med card, something just to kind of keep you away from that interaction.
This kind of goes into now, a lot of anger, frustration, violence can be stemming from suicidal or homicidal thoughts in our patients. And it's important to ask that question. I know this is kind of a sensitive subject. It's very personal, and right off the bat, most people aren't going to want to talk about it. But it is, you have to ask these questions. Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you having thoughts of hurting others? I mean, these are very important questions to ask. And I think it's important for everybody to be comfortable asking those questions, because when you're feeling uncomfortable about this sensitive subject, other people are going to pick up on that. So here we're going to look at some symptoms of suicidal and homicidal thoughts. So suicidal, isolating behaviors. So for prolonged periods of time, they're keeping to themselves, they're not interacting with others. It could be out of fear, anxiety, depression, or maybe even their symptoms. Command hallucinations could be forcing them to keep to themselves. So also poor eye contact. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Decreasing attention to hygiene. They're coming in regularly, their clothes are soiled, they have excessive body odor, their hair is a mess, and their nails are long and dirty. You can definitely see that right off the bat. And then there's also talking about harming themselves. It's important to know how realistic is that. Are they somebody that harms themselves by cutting, you know, are they having thoughts of hurting themselves, really ending their life? So it's important to ask, you know, are you having thoughts? If you are, is there a plan? What does that plan look like? Let's talk about that. What are you know, how reliable is this plan? If somebody tells you, I want to commit suicide, well, how are you going to do that? Have you thought about it? Yeah, I'm going to jump, you know, off of a bridge. So my follow-up question would be, do you live near a bridge? How far is the bridge from your house? Are you in walking distance? Would you have to drive your car to that bridge and then jump? So these are important things. It really you really see how far the patient is in establishing that plan. And then we also have history of suicide or self-harm. That's important to know as well. Have you been hospitalized? How many times have you tried to commit suicide? What were your attempts like before? Just really seeing if there's a pattern into this behavior. And then also giving away possessions, not making any future plans, and increased depression. So some of the symptoms of depression, you want to know, are you on any medication? Have you talked to a therapist for your depressive symptoms? You know, what do those look like? So that's looking at their sleeping patterns, their appetite. They're crying a lot if they haven't been spending time with their friends, which goes back into the isolating behavior. Do they have any pain? Pain is a huge factor in suicide. And also unable to concentrate, substance abuse. Those are all important factors when you're looking at the patient who become violent or is just, you know, becoming nasty. And then also homicidal thoughts. Do you have a history of aggressive behavior, or is this the first time? If this is the first time, what's going on? What's the background for that? Increased anxiety or impulse behaviors, which we've talked about already. Also history of head injury, and again, substance abuse. So these are all important roles to ask your patient.
How do you identify one of the reasons that we wanted to have this brought forward is there was recently in the news there was a homicide, suicide in a hospital, and so how do you recognize that kind of a scenario? What do you look for? Is it the same behaviors then in the visitor who's coming and the patient themselves if they have some sort of pattern?
I think that one's difficult because we don't have a lot of background information outside of the actual incident. You know, so we don't know if maybe this patient and their visitor had come up with this plan. You know, I mean, that's my initial response is, what was the patient's diagnosis? Why were they in the hospital? What was really going on with them? Was their condition really grave? And was this a plan? Because that does happen. You know, I mean, that's unfortunately our reality and what we deal with in society. I would say to look at, are they just isolating with themselves? You know, are they kind of pushing medical staff and medical intervention away? You know, I'm sure if social work's going in, are they not really engaging with social work? Has there been a decrease in engagement? Is it just getting the meals, not really talking or engaging with doctors or nurses about what the outcome's going to be, what the medical interventions are that are planned for this person? You know, so you have to do a little bit more detective work and look at, you know, the whole system. So you're looking at the patient, you're looking at their visitors. And I think that's what makes it difficult.
And so I think if we were to look at that scenario and had more information, like Carrie was saying, I'm wondering how many people who took care of that patient, did they ask these questions? Because these would be red flags. If those two individuals, if that person was that upset and wanted to end their life, these red flags would have been there, I would imagine. So it's really important, again, to ask those questions. Because then if you have in your mind, okay, this person is very, very depressed. You know, maybe they have a pain issue, maybe they have a terminal cancer, you know. So it's really, those people I would think give you that red flag and it's in the front of your mind that it is a possibility.
If the patient's nonverbal, is it appropriate to go down some of that line of questioning with a family member? I mean, how do you...
I would, because I would look at, you know, because I know that some of the patients that you all see is for a duration of time. You know, so you're going to have some history. Some people are really not comfortable giving a full psychiatric history. You know, I mean, we still have a lot of stigma about somebody who's schizophrenic or somebody who's had depression or bipolar. you know, sometimes you can see those signs on their arms. You know, are there a lot of scarring on the arms that are linear? You're gonna know that somebody's a self-harmer. Is it on their legs? Some people do that and they hide it. You'll see it on their stomach, you'll see it on their inner thighs, because nobody wants to, you know, you're gonna hide that from somebody. You'll see it more on adolescents, where they'll do it on their arm. You know, there's unfortunately kind of a badge of honor sometimes with that. So I would look for some of those signs with somebody who's maybe not, well, with anybody really, but especially with somebody who's non-communicative. And I would ask the family, you know, if you think you're going to know based on some of the medications that they're on, you know, assuming that they come in with a really good med list, you know, somebody's taking a Wellbutrin or a Seroquel, you know, different psychiatric meds. Why are they taking this? You know, and if they give you, somebody might give you a certain, you know, answer, well, if some of the medications are used, well, they were trying to quit smoking. Okay, but then why were they taking the Seroquel with it?
Right.
You know, there's some signs to it.
Yeah, families know, I mean, our families know everything about us, probably sometimes more than we want them to. So I think it's, if you can get the family to participate in that, get that information from someone who's not cooperating, it's very beneficial. They'll tell you, because you're hoping that the family, if the family's there visiting the person because they care about them and they want them to get better, so they would be more forthcoming, I would imagine, with that information.
And sometimes, you know, I think sometimes depending on what the diagnosis is or what the outcome is for our patients, it's not unusual to have a psychiatric medication coupled with the other meds, the other medical interventions. And with some of these signs of suicidal and homicidal, we just have to tweak them a little bit specific to your programs and your units. You know, if somebody's refusing to have assistance caring for their hygiene, is there a reason for that? Is it really painful, or do they just not care anymore? And are they thinking, I'm done? You know, so I think it's just, you know, tweaking some of that. Are they isolating just with their family members, like we were saying, and kind of pushing off the doctor and the nurse, not wanting any of the information that's being told to them? So, you know, just little things like that.
I think a big one too is if they don't want their family to come see them anymore. They don't want that support. They're getting towards the end. They just don't want anything, and they just want to lay there and die. So I think that's a huge difficulty.
And you know, I think with the giving away possessions, I know that some of the patients that you all take care of have to think about those things. But for somebody who has a different prognosis, could be rehabbed, could come, you know, go back to living maybe somewhat independently or in a group home. If they're doing some of those things, then that's a telltale sign. So these are more preventative, more like policy initiatives. So establishing a zero tolerance policy for violence. They showed it in the video. I'm sure it was an ER that they were really focusing on, even as far as filming. But they showed it on the one window. It was probably for registration or cashier, and it showed a zero tolerance policy. You know, we will not tolerate violence from workers, patients, visitors, things like that. So I think having a zero tolerance policy helps. Ensuring that it's posted. So posted in any of your facilities, any of your units, reviewing it with patients and family as they're being brought onto the unit. You know, as you're doing all of that intake paper or transfer paper, making sure that patients and family are aware of it. And going over it with new hires and staff, and especially as things change. A lot of the literature I found was having that be part of the annual review, or having that be part of like our health streams. And then identifying reasons why certain areas are at a higher risk for violence. So that relates more to the next slide. You know, are there certain areas that are potential for robberies? Is the hospital located in a high crime area? Is there plenty of firearm in the area? You know, that kind of goes with high crime. Is there a lot of turnover in the hospital or on a specific unit? Is there low staffing? Is there a lot of exposure to uncooperative clients? We see that a lot in the ERs, dealing with our psychiatric patients that we're working with. And then, how are the rooms prepared? Is there furniture that's easy to be moved? Are there items that can be thrown? So bonding everybody that's walking in and out of the hospital. But again, I'm not sure. We go to one hospital that gets put on, the ER gets put on lockdown quite a bit. So I'm not sure what their interventions are. Because we just kind of get let in because they know who we are. But they usually have the police come and don't let anybody in. So, we're out. Using curved mirrors in the hallway. We have one by our crisis office because we're down a very dark hallway and people don't normally come down our hall. So it's nice, we can look and see who's there. Controlled access to work areas. I know a lot of places have keypads to get into break rooms. I know that's a big thing at the ERs or to get into the ER. Maybe being a little bit more clever if you all have keypads, just to kind of keep everybody safe, because if it's an area you're going to evacuate to, being a little bit more clever with the keypad, with what the PIN number is. You know, not using 1234 or 1379, you know, using somebody's extension so everybody knows, it's manager's extension, 2440. You know, somebody who's a patient or a patient family member, visitor, isn't going to really readily know that. Having staff go through an actual training on how to deal with combative clients. You know, there are a couple trainings out there. There's CIT training, there's CPI training, and it's usually a full day. It does go in with restraint, but you could always have them cut it off and not do the full restraint, you know, especially if we're not going to be licensed in certain areas for restraining. They give a lot of different tools. What to do if somebody grabs your hair, you know, things like that. What to do if somebody's trying to spit on you outside of running away. And then, obviously, make staff notifications aware of zero tolerance, clear groups of clutter if you can secure furniture so that it can't be moved, can't be tossed around. That's always helpful. That's something that we ended up doing on an inpatient psych unit, is actually screwing the beds and the dressers into the floors. And then implement any other violence prevention plan, whether that's an evacuation plan, whether that's something you do with risk management, security. And then these were best practices that I found. For prevention plans, if you were going to be rewriting one, working on preventing violent incidents was part of it. Managing situations to prevent escalation, that would go with some of the trainings. Enhancing physical structure, so getting lights, maybe making sure furniture can't be moved around. This is more extended. Techniques for identifying violent individuals, whether that's something that you do during an intake, during paperwork, going over, does the patient have a history of violence, you know, do they have a psych history, things like that. De-escalation skills, going back to training, violence management training, conducting violence audits. So that's going, once an incident occurs, why did it occur? Kind of doing like a root cause analysis, but having it based more towards violence. And then conducting a violence walkthrough. And that's looking at furniture, looking at lighting, looking at mirrors, things like that. And then the response to the violence using debriefings. This is my shameless self-promotion. Using the crisis team if you need us. We will come out and we will do a critical incident stress debriefing. We've been here before for different incidents, we've been to other hospitals, and we'll come out and do groups or do individual. And you can always reach us through the crisis line, or ERC. They'll contact us too. That's the Employee Resource Center. So, then I have the resources. If anybody wants any of the articles that I used, I'm more than happy to scan them or do an email them. So that is our training in a nutshell.
Any questions?
I'm going to say this for very selfish reasons. If indeed we had an incident like Kindred had, there's a whole crisis communications piece that needs to obviously be activated, and handling the media that could conceivably be in our parking lot waiting for somebody to walk out. There's a whole process and procedure that manages that too. So there has to be awareness among employees, I think, to know that if indeed we have an incident like that, that there should be general instruction that, you know, don't talk to reporters. If you go into your car in the parking lot, you know, don't say anything. You send it to me, you send it, you know, there's that whole external piece that becomes unmanageable if it's not contained, starting with employees first.
Any other questions?